After an epic first day in Lyttelton Harbour, Christchurch, SailGP is back for day 2. New Zealand SailGP team set the benchmark on day 1 as we reach crunch time in season 3. All the focus is on today's winner-takes-all final. Out of 9 international teams, only 3 will make it through. Welcome to Super Sunday at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix.
Stand by. 0, go, go, go. 1, up. Go wing. Slowly coming 1, 2. Here we go. Stand by wheel. You guys are on? Very well sound, everyone.
And a warm kia ora from Lyttelton Harbour as Champion Sunday has arrived at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Christchurch. Just one of the spectacular ports on the South Island of Aotearoa. This is SailGP's first visit to New Zealand, and with the Kiwis currently the top point getters after one day of racing, the excitement is at an all-time high amongst the capacity crowd that are on both land and sea. Alongside two-time Olympian and world champion Stevie Morrison and professional sailor and world champion Emily Nagel, I'm Todd Harris. Well, tickets for today's racing sold out in minutes. And the schedule will be 2 fleet races followed by the finale, which will involve only the top 3 teams on points for a winner-take-all race. And if today's racing is anything like day 1, we are in for an amazing show put on by the world's best sailors and a sport that is powered by nature. Before we get to race 4, let's take a look back at day 1's incredible action. Welcome to the breathtaking Lyttelton Harbour on the South Island, New Zealand. This is the hottest ticket in town. Dips the nose and
disappointing. Oh, they're out of control.
France took their confidence from Sydney straight into race 1.
They are fast on board that French boat.
New Zealand and Australia challenged France, but they couldn't reel them in.
Wow, that was so tight. This French crew, if you get them out in front, they know how to sail the boat very, very fast.
And once again, just like in Sydney, Australia, the French draw first blood.
The old rivalry between New Zealand and Australia emerged in race 2.
Oh, it was an aggressive move. Oh, and the Kiwis are pushing it so hard.
The Kiwi team takes the win in race number 2.
Race 3 saw Canada nail their start and take command, while New Zealand were playing catch-up after a pre-start penalty.
Dead last off the line, and now the Kiwis are in play.
Every single point will count ahead of the grand final in San Francisco, and New Zealand didn't miss an opportunity to keep Emirates GBR behind.
He doesn't want to give Ainsley an inch. Burling sticks it straight in his face. Oh, the big move away by Great Britain. He will protest here, I'd imagine.
And in race number 3, it is the Crazy Canucks, the Canadians, come to New Zealand and get the win.
For series leaders Australia, rudder damage saw them drop to last, with work to do to make the New Zealand podium.
Basically broken one side of the rudder wing, so we got that one like we did last time.
Well, a chance to go down to the water quickly with the Australian SailGP driver, Tom Slingsby. Tom, the conditions look pretty great out on the water there for racing today. Yesterday in the last race there, we heard you seem to have a bit of a problem. Have you managed to find out what it was?
Look, honestly, I think it was we hit weed and we couldn't clear it. Basically, we were going downwind and, yeah, we're in 3rd place and I'm pretty sure it was seaweed. But we tried to clear it and couldn't get it off, and we couldn't see it, actually. The water's not super clear. And then we thought, okay, we can't clear, it mustn't be weed. We might have broken a rudder wing. But then right at the finish of the races, we were sort of limping home in last place. It all cleared up. So we think that's what the issue was.
Okay, well, that's great news to hear. As you allude to, yeah, you had a pretty, not a usual last race for you, but you're still very much in the hunt. But are you focused on anyone specific out there today?
No, we're not focused on anyone specific. Honestly, we're really just focused on ourselves. We need to start sailing better. It's clear to see that the New Zealand team are the best team here, and we're not sailing as well as we have in the past, but we believe if we do get our confidence up and start sailing better, that we can beat them. So we're just focusing on ourselves, and yeah, we've had a few technical issues. We had a few hydraulic issues yesterday, and we really would love to get out there and start doing some training, because we need to check the changes that were made overnight by the tech team and make sure the boat's working properly.
And before we get to the fourth race here at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Christchurch, let's take a look at the scoreboard. It is the Kiwis on top, 4 points clear of Canada in second, and Great Britain holding down that third and final transfer spot in to the last race of the day. Still a lot of racing still to go. France currently sitting in fourth place on 21 points. Then the Australians after that difficult performance in race 3 yesterday. The Americans, the Swiss, the Danes, and the Spains rounding out the top 9. Well, just moments ago, it was the Kiwis giving the sold-out crowd a nice little flyby. The grandstands are completely packed. So everyone's just about ready to go, but there are some key stats. And Emily, it looks like that first lap, whatever it is, the 3 races we saw yesterday, that first lap really holds the key to how you'll finish.
Yesterday's stats show a definite pattern to all 3 races. So look here at each team's position at Mark 1. Gate 3 at the end of the first lap, and then the finish. Most teams show a really big place change within that first lap, but then after that, positions rarely change. So on day 1, winning the start was not critical, but that first lap was. The rest of the race was then all about consolidating and not making errors. So how do the skippers feel about today?
Well, we sailed pretty well yesterday. We were reasonably consistent, and we had, on the most part, good boat handling and good speed, and did a good job around the track. Our starts definitely could have been better. It would have helped us out if we got around that Mark 1 in better shape. So that's something we'll focus on today. If we can get away, like I say, we've got the boat handling and the speed to be able to finish off some of these races.
I think yesterday we struggled in the 2 last races, but the first one was probably one of our best, or the best. We extend our lead, and so it puts the confidence into the team that we are able to do these kind of things, and yeah, so much motivation for today.
We just need today to have a functioning boat from the beginning, so we can just focus on sailing and not focusing on problem solving and trying to get the wings sorted and the rudders and everything. So, and then we need to sail better. But it's all about where your focus are.
Yeah, well, definitely looking like pretty similar breeze out there. We're on obviously the exact same configuration, so we're just looking to build on yesterday. We feel like we did some things incredibly well, but also made a lot of mistakes out there on the racetrack. So we were looking forward to getting into it.
Well, Mother Nature has certainly given us the goods today. Blue skies, light breeze, temperature is absolutely perfect. Right now, let's send it down to the 4th member of our broadcast team down on the water. Here's Olympic silver medalist Lisa Darmanin.
We have splendid conditions for racing. The breeze is slightly lighter and a little more right than yesterday. Winds are averaging 25 kilometres per hour with gusts over 28 kilometres per hour, which is perfect for this 24-metre wing setup. The tide is only just turning to run out, so water is also flatter than we saw yesterday, so good for the speed runs. There is a slight change in direction, which means that wind is more consistent, so we might see a bit of a pattern emerge on this racetrack. So let's take a closer look at what is in store for the course map today.
Precision in the pre-start is key to hitting the line at full speed. It's then a sprint to Mark 1. At Mark 1, the fleet can split as they sail off in different directions, with the teams choosing the side of the course that they think will get them to gate 2 the quickest. Here they've got a big choice to make as they can turn left or right. The leading boats will be looking to select the best side of the course with the most favourable wind. It's a much harder decision for the boat behind. Remember that sailboats don't sail fast unless they're sailing at an angle to the wind, so we see them zigzag their way around the course, looking for the fastest path. At each gate, the teams have to try and find some space to get their boats up to full speed. It's a lot easier for those boats ahead. The wind's rotated a little further right here today. It's perfect conditions, but it's a boat speed race out there, so whoever can drive their boats the fastest is going to be enjoying the finish in front of the fans.
Coming up on 4 minutes to go before the first race of the day. Thousands on shore and on the waters of Lyttelton Harbour watching SailGP Super Sunday in New Zealand. At the same time, our technology puts viewers up close and provides a clear perspective of the course.
Our computer-generated graphics are seen on the F50s as well as on broadcasts to define the boundaries of the course, as well as the ladder lines covering whole legs. 100 meters apart, the ladder lets us measure each boat's progress up and down the course, who is ahead and behind, the gaps between boats, the distance sailed from the last gate, and still to sail to the next gate.
And it's all come together here. Day 2, Super Sunday at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix. Christchurch coming up on 3 minutes and 10 seconds to go before the start of race number 4. Now remember, 3 races took place yesterday. We'll have 2 today, and then the big race will only be the top 3 teams battling out. Steve, you look at the team, New Zealand, it seems like they've got it all figured out, and they should on home water.
Well, they certainly seemed to be on fire yesterday, and Pete Burling, I mean, he's got room to improve on his starting, but Blair Toot, wing trimmer, they were very fast out there. They're going to be confident, and Liv Mackay in that strategy role, she seemed to find some space on the track, and her and Pete combined well together to move them up through the fleet. But, you know, we saw from Emily's stats, that ability to move through the fleet, will it be as important today, or as easy today, with that steadier wind?
And Emily, their arch rivals, Australia, certainly, they are loaded. Their CVs are very solid. They've got some great folks on board their boat as well.
They are the defending champions of this entire series, but they have had a few gremlins, particularly yesterday. So today's going to be all about working those out, getting their comms back to normal, and giving the Kiwis a run for their money.
And this is a sensitive area, Stevie, so they have not had a lot of time to practice. Normally they get a day or two before, multiple hours, but that has not been the case today because of mammal sightings. So they have got limited time to get things squared away here in Lyttelton Harbour.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the same for everyone though, Todd. They've all been in a very similar position.
The course for race 4 is 7 legs. The course axis is 080. Wind is approximately 27 kilometers per hour.
Just coming back to that point though, Todd, what's interesting is I think we are getting to the pinch point of the season here.
Yeah.
And Tom Slingsby's interview, he's worried about the Kiwis. So I think today that could be a story. You know, we've got that finals not far away now, and the Kiwis do look like the best team. And talking about that final, pressure's on this boat. Can't think there's much more pressure than on Ben Ainsley and his crew, really. They had a decent day yesterday, but they're still behind the French in the overalls. And for him to miss the final would be almost unthinkable.
Right now, Emirates GBR is 2 points behind France for that 3rd and final spot in the grand final in San Francisco. And right now, the French, Stevie, despite what they did towards the yesterday, they look pretty good.
They're very good at Maël Frascari there, the strategist's first event on the boat. As we see with a minute to go, we're already up and running. Very different strategies. New Zealand, Denmark. Denmark looked late to the party. Disappointing day yesterday. A lot of technical problems, and they look well out of position right now. Australia, typically first to turn back. They love to control the start. So for me, Australia's got good control, but it could be New Zealand with this timed run in behind everyone that lined things up well. 35 seconds to go. People have played their cards, and we're looking to make things happen. And Britain, Great Britain, they're only just on our screen. They really are out of position. 27 seconds to go. Australia turns the boat down. He looks to accelerate across the fleet. Start line's very close. Whole fleet close in. New Zealand and Australia well positioned at the moment, but it's going to be a case of getting the acceleration right. There's the pole position. Now the French have blocked off New Zealand. Aggressive by De La Pierre. What's that going to do? Opening a door potentially for Great Britain to dive in at the end. 5 seconds to go. How's the timing on the line? Oh, it's perfect from Australia there, and the Australians are going to be so fast with a better angle to Mark 1. They should lead the fleet away.
Race number 4 is off and running here at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Christchurch, and it is the Aussies in desperate need of points. It'll get to Mark 1 first.
Really good start by the Australians there, and Denmark, well, I thought he'd left it too late, but Sejersted, by the skin of his teeth, he gets second at Mark 1, and he's got to drop back though. That penalty's going to really hurt him here. Could open the door for Jimmy Spitter, who was the first to turn away as New Zealand. Now they've been reading this course well, and they're looking for space. They move away from the fleet. Look how close that racing is there, Todd. All the crews get to this boundary in front of the fans very quickly. It gets pretty tight on the course there, but quite orderly today. And good news for Australia. Well lined up for gate 2. You've got to think from here they'll try and keep it simple. Straight through the gate with the left turns, my guess for Australia. But where in New Zealand? Have they found more wind? Have Great Britain found more wind on the left-hand side of the screen?
And we've got to point out the hazards in the middle. You cannot go between those markers. You have to go around them. It is the Australians that will get to gate number 2 first. The Americans in a drag race with France. Stevie, who's got the right of way between the Americans and the French?
The French have to keep clear at the moment, but when they hit that yellow circle, the French will be entitled to room on the inside. So it's tight moment here, but the French have held on. They now have the right of way. Jimmy Spittle must give them space to round.
Gate 2, it's Australia, France, and the USA here in race number 4. It's Super Sunday, everyone jockeying for points and position.
First to split away, there's Great Britain. Look at those dark blotches in the water. That is seaweed. That's what Tom Slingsby was talking about yesterday. There seems to be a lot of seaweed in the water, so the crews are going to need an eye out for that as well. As Canada, they were on fire yesterday, but this is a disappointing start for Phil Robertson's crew. And Seth Hested, wow, that penalty. Second all the way back to 9th. What a painful penalty.
On board the Canadians, still calm voices. Phil Robertson, their driver, trying to move them up the ladder. And there you see the leaders right now. Australia out in front, Great Britain now in 3rd, France in 2nd. USA now has moved up to 2nd place, so great run for the Americans and Jimmy Spithill.
Look at the angle Great Britain's having to sail here. They're having to avoid that no-go zone, and he's sailing. He's not making any progress up the course. What a mistake by the British crew. They've got to go all the way around that post. Disaster. And right now, New Zealand, they've got space, and they're stretching away.
Still seeing the best speeds here by the Australian team. 55 kilometers per hour averaging up this leg here. Definitely no seaweed on those rudders today.
Americans having to dip behind the French. And that will cost them as New Zealand now inherits 3rd place. The Americans dropping back to 4th. This is race 4. We're on leg 3 of 7. One more fleet race to go. And then only the top 3 teams will race in the last race of the day.
Well, at the moment, with the things are here, Slingsby.
Just trying to do a bit of avoiding of these weed patches. It's coming down a bit lower.
Learned his lesson from yesterday by the look of it, trying to avoid that weed. As we see now the French up to 2nd. Again, they found some space and they've got plenty of speed. But New Zealand, top of our screen there with Great Britain, they've got the right of way. Jimmy Spittle needs to be confident he's clear ahead here.
52 kilometers an hour for the Americans. They sit in 3rd. Everyone chasing the Australians. And remember, Australia finished in 9th place to wrap up yesterday, but they did have 2 first good races going 4 and 2.
100% fly time at the moment for the top 3 teams. Australia still leading the way with speed, 52 kilometers an hour versus France slightly slower, and the USA a little bit further behind that. But brilliant sailing. They've got a much more open course today, so really able to get those speeds up.
I think it just highlights as well, the boat ahead should always be faster. They're sailing in clear wind, there's no disturbed air, and those Australians know how to make the most of that. Slingsby there, he tacks that yellow line. That's what we call the lay line. That means he should make it to gate 3 with no more changes, but they're struggling to lift the board. Look how slow that board was coming up on board Australia there. Well lined up for gate 3, and if we go back to yesterday, Todd, the position at gate 3 was pretty definitive, so it'll be interesting how that plays out from here.
Constant comms across the board. On board Australia, they are the 2-time reigning and defending champions of SailGP, trying to make it the 3-peat here. Can they hold off the Kiwis and the French?
Really nice rounding there. As we can see, it's really tight here coming into gate 3. Great Britain, USA are close, and Switzerland are going to have the right of way. Jimmy Spittle and USA needs to keep clear. New Zealand up to 2nd. The French just sneak round 3rd, and it's so tight in at the top here. Ainsley tries to dive inside the US. Oh, it was tight. I think they all negotiated that really quite well through that moment there, but the USA must keep clear of Ben Ainsley's Great Britain here. And back in the pack, Canada 8th, Spain 7th.
On leg 4 of 7, let's go down on the water and Lisa Darmanin.
Well, Todd, because of the wind direction, it is more consistent across the course, but the teams had no practice to figure out this racetrack. But what I'm seeing right now is there's a beautiful wind funnel along the shore where that crowd is, so there are big gains to be made out there. It's going to be a tough day if you're not out in front to navigate between the boats and those pylons.
So everyone right now chasing Australia. There you see their lead. It is over 300 meters. And it is the Kiwis that are starting to reel them in, Stevie. How about that? If they can get in touch with them, we'll have ourselves a head-to-head matchup between Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, leg 4 of 7, that's a massive lead for Slingsby here. I don't see him letting this slip, but they split at the top, and there was a gain to the people on the crowd, and that's probably reassuring for Lisa.
Throwing back to that last leg, we can see that the Aussies and Kiwis were neck and neck with pace, both averaging 50k an hour, but the Aussies were doing less distance again, so making gains all the time.
We've seen this happen before with Australia having a bad race, and they come back and put on a stellar performance just to get into that final. Stevie, we know what happens when you get Australia into a 3-boat race. They're always the odds-on favorite.
They are, but generally speaking, the Kiwi boat's been fast here. As we see the French and New Zealand, France has the right of way. What does Burling do? He chooses to play the safe option, doesn't push it. He's going to split left. He'll have clear wind on a left turn here, but the French, Quentin de la Pierre's going nowhere. They're sailing that boat very, very fast. USA and Switzerland, so close here. Wow, that was such a late manoeuvre here.
This is the umpires. Penalty USA relative Switzerland. Port tack boat not keeping clear.
So he needs to drop back behind the Swiss here, Jimmy Spittle. That was such a late manoeuvre, a bit too aggressive right there. As we see on the far side of the course, New Zealand and Great Britain, they've split away. Can they find a bit more wind and chase down those Australians?
So they'll make their way up to gate number 5, then they'll come back down, and then it'll be a short blast to the finish line, with Australia looking to pick up valuable points here in race number 4. They are the 2-time reigning and defending champions, and Tom Slingsby said before the start of the racing yesterday, there's nothing the Australians love to do to come to Kiwi waters and beat them.
260-meter lead for Australia there, and it just keeps growing. 270 now.
Good game for New Zealand versus France here. New Zealand have the right of way. They were behind France at the last gate. Now they move back ahead. So slight gain to New Zealand, but there's not a lot of difference whether you go to the left of the course or to the right of the course where the French are now. So really, it's down to the execution of the manoeuvres at this stage. And Great Britain, Emirates Great Britain, really needs to pass the French here in that battle for the top 3 places.
Great shot of New Zealand. Emirates GBR right behind them.
Well, they were just pushing so high. You saw the boat wobble and slip. That was just because they got a little bit high out of the water. They start to lose grip and the boat slides sideways. But it just shows how hard Burling's wanting to push things. But the Australians have slowed right down on the top of screen. They've got a big, big lead, so there won't be any panic yet.
So that lead now under 200 meters, which was closer to 300, but they are on leg 5 of 7. So it'll be one more leg once they get to this gate number 5 down and then back up to the finish line.
New Zealand and France, it's going to be tight here. Well, they're just absolutely tied together on a piece of string, really. Tight cross. New Zealand must be safely across. It's really tight again. Be interesting whether the French decide to protest here. I think it was probably okay, but we'll hear maybe from Craig Mitchell at some stage. Nothing yet. I think he was clear ahead on board New Zealand there, and still Australia. They're stretching that lead again, back into good breeze, sailing fast.
Constant communications on board Australia as Tom Slingsby's asking his tactician to keep an eye on traffic about. So he already knows that it's going to be New Zealand and GBR as they make this turn to the right-hand side.
This is the final downwind leg here. Downwind, they turn away. Look at the acceleration there, up to 75. There's so much less drag when you're going downwind. The boat just goes a lot faster. Potentially just 1 or 2 manoeuvres left. And again, New Zealand and France absolutely neck and neck. Right of way with the New Zealand boat here. If the French stay inside that circle, oh my word. Great move by de la Pierre. It's so tight, but they're going to split away from each other. And New Zealand, well, that was the favoured way to turn left. Good news for the Kiwi crew at this point, but he's got to watch out for Denmark here. So close. Wow.
It's crucial here for the French team not to make any mistakes. By placing a place ahead of the British team, it really helps them in this battle for the final. At the moment, with these current results, you would see New Zealand, Great Britain and France all within 2 points of each other going into race 5.
And remember, it's only the top 3 teams that will race in the final race of the day. Australia doing themselves a solid right now as they lead with a huge margin. New Zealand sits in second, France in third, and Great Britain trying to make gains. The Americans, Stevie, they were up into 4th, and then they got that penalty on Switzerland, which has dropped them back to 6th.
Yeah, I mean, the standard's so high now that if you make a mistake and you get a penalty, it's just too costly. We saw the Australians here. They've done a really nice job in this race. That should put them right back in the hunt for the overalls. I think a second place for New Zealand will nearly definitely put them in the final already. They were nearly 7 points ahead already here. So that's good news for the New Zealand fans on the shoreline there. But the French, they're charging down. Has he got the line right into this final turning, Mark? It's going to be really close at the bottom. Potentially a last-minute dive in from De La Pierre.
Yep.
He has the right of way. New Zealand must let him in there. Oh la la! So close, but France, can they stay on the foils? It's going to be a sprint to the finish. The French must keep clear of New Zealand.
As they make a turn to the finish line with Australia already in the winner's circle, and France goes a little bit wide.
Penalty, France.
Oh, and France does get a penalty. So Australia gets the win in race 4. The Kiwis hold on for second, and France now an opportunity wasted.
Well, and there could be another boat coming in. The French haven't finished yet. I think they're going to sneak across in third, but Great Britain was there. It's going to be a photo finish. Well, I don't want to call that one. Potentially, GBR got there before the French. I'm not sure. That was so close on the line. And what a result for Diego Botín and his Spanish crew in 4th. Brilliant result by the new driver on Spain there. Great job. Sorry, 5th place for the Spanish. My mistake. Canada coming home there just ahead of Denmark. Wow, that was a really close finish, and that's going to have done some serious changes on the overalls. Can't wait to find out if Great Britain did sneak past the French on the line. That could be a really costly penalty for the French.
So Emily Nagel will be crunching the numbers as we get ready for the final fleet race before the big final. Look at the grandstands, absolutely packed. Now everyone will start the debrief. Let's have a look at some of the action.
Well, here you go. The French must keep clear, and look at that. They fly the boat too high, and it just slips sideways towards the New Zealand boat. There, look at the boat. It's leaping around the French boat. They had to keep clear. Well, we know Contan likes to push. Francois Morvan, the flight controller on board France there, pushed it a little bit too far, slipped sideways. Wow, it was a costly moment. It was so tight.
So the Australians get the victory in race number 4. Well done to Tom Slingsby and company. He told Stevie Morrison just before the start of the racing that they were going to focus on themselves and not worry about anyone else. Steve, he did just that. He went out, got out in front, stayed out in front.
Yeah, I mean, they were really fast. It was a pretty exciting race, given stayed all so close together. And the key moment, or the most exciting moment, if nothing else, was this moment on the final leg to the finish here. New Zealand, they looked like they'd given a bit too much of an opportunity to France, but they used the rules aggressively, pushed the French up. De La Pierre tried to drive that French boat over the top, but he drove it too close, too aggressive. They lost control, and that was it. In keeping clear, they lost control, and that let the hometown favourites through for a second place. But what a race, so close.
And they pick up that penalty, they drop behind New Zealand. Look at this, at the line, Great Britain comes around. Wow. Well, the fans treated to a great race on race number 4 with one more fleet race to go. And the fans really enjoying this weather, and it could not be much better throughout the Adrenaline Lounge and into the bleachers. Everyone enjoyed it. Let's go down on the water on board France SailGP. Contan de la Pierre, that was a tough race. Take us through that last few hundred meters. What were you seeing, especially with the Kiwis on your left-hand side?
Yeah, I mean, we tried to attack them, and on the inside, before the before the last mark, and obviously they were really fast coming from behind, and yeah, I just tell to the team that we will have a look right after the game, and they did really well. And yeah, I mean, we tried to push the boat today, and on this reaching we were like not under control, so we have to do better for the next races.
Contan, you look like you were going fast, and it looks like you're working on something in the cockpit at the moment. What are the key points on this race course? We can see a lot of seaweed out there, but is the wind shifty or is it a bit easier on the race course today?
Yeah, you're right, still a lot of shift here. Less patchy than yesterday, but the shifts are important, and I think it's not an even courses, and yeah, you are allowed to play your shift and not going every time on the boundaries, so yeah, quite an open game today.
It certainly looked like a great race, Contan. I hope you get yourself sorted and one more good race.
So let's take a look at the results from race number 4. It is Australia with a dominant performance. They pick up the 10 points. New Zealand finishing in second place, just getting past the French and Contan Delapierre, who we just heard from. Emirates GBR in 4th, and Spain with a great finish with Diego Botín. Canada, Denmark, Switzerland, and the United States, a terrible performance for them in race 4. So 4 races down, 1 more to go before the final. And look at this, 37 points for the Kiwis, way out in front. So the battle now will be for 2nd and 3rd, Great Britain in 2nd, and then 29 even on France, Canada, and Stevie, Australia still in play on that number 28.
Yeah, there's nothing in it. What an exciting final race we've got here. There's 4 boats. Pretty much whoever beats whoever's going to get their way through to the final 3.
What a beautiful backdrop here as we have been welcomed, and the folks here have been the most wonderful hosts here at Day 2, the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix from Christchurch. We'll have much more when we return. When France's team manager Bruno Dubois replaced Billy Besson for Contan Delapierre, he had one goal: to win event titles. Let's see how his plan came together in Spain. Classic match race in the final gate. It's the Americans on the inside, the French on the outside. Separated by just a few meters. With the finish line there, who will get the win? And it will be France getting their first victory in SailGP St. Magnifique.
Oh, allez les bleus!
That was the last stack of Jimmy and the Americans. I was super close, and I was focused with Kevin and Mathieu and Manon to stay foiling and get around them. It was super tricky because we lost so much speed at the end, and we finished without foiling, but we were a little bit quicker than them. I mean, the move was tricky because Jimmy at this time has the opportunity to loft. Getting around them was a difficult move. I love this moment when we are a little bit faster, and so we are getting on the foil a little bit quicker. And when I saw the Jimmy's bow a little bit behind us, I was like pretty confident that we will win the race. Super funny to see all the crew on board like screaming and champagne, bringing the wheel, the Spanish wheel first for the French team. That was a super good feeling, and that was a good award for all the works that the team did. And we did it all together and not with individuals or something. Like everyone is really part of this success. And but that's now a little bit behind, and the second half of the season is started, and we have to be focused on this half.
Go, go, go.
One of the most picturesque cities anywhere in the world, Christchurch has been the host for the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix as we have reached Super Sunday here as SailGP comes to New Zealand for the first time.
Over the past few days, the F50s haven't been the only ones out on the water. This weekend, we've also had the Inspire Racing program out there. We've had the youth of the New Zealand out there on wasps. We've had them out wing foiling. We've had them crushing it out there on the water on the RS Fevers as well. Over 16 sailors from all over the country have been in the wasps, and they've had some brilliant racing.
Coming in really, really fast, it's Herbert.
The most dominant performance.
On the back of the result in San Francisco, we were made aware that you get the opportunity to get a placement with your country, and there was the potential for a ride on an F50. It's quite hard to explain the emotions of it. Pete and Blair have been a big inspiration for my yachting. So to get alongside them, get a few touches of the wheel as well, was surreal. I don't think anything will quite match that for a very long time. So my ultimate goal would be to get on something like SailGP. If it's foiling, I want to be there.
Well, it is an open race course out here, which means there are still opportunities for overtaking. As Quentin said, you have to play your game. For me, I do like the left-hand side of the racetrack, and that is where all the crowds are. So hopefully the teams will be doing flybys to that. And I just think that you can sail shorter distance if you come over here, just because it's accelerating down the shoreline. So the wind's picked up maybe just slightly, so they are at the top end of their light air boards and those 24-metre wings, but they seem quite in control out here on Lyttelton Harbour.
All right, thank you, Lisa. So all the teams have had a chance to debrief, take on some liquid refreshment, and get them set ready for this 5th and final fleet race. And this will determine who will be in the last race of the day. Remember, you needed the top point getters. Stevie, Emily, I got to say right now, New Zealand's pretty much a lock, but now the battle is on for positions 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to hand over to Emily exactly on that, but I'm pretty sure New Zealand are definitely in. But yeah, it's Australia, it's Great Britain, it's France, and it's
Canada as well.
Wow.
So we've got 4 boats battling for 2 positions. The Kiwis, you know, there is a small chance they wouldn't make it, but it's pretty unlikely. They'd have to have a major incident.
Coming up on 1:15 to go, this is race number 5 of the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix here in Christchurch. Todd Harris, Stevie Morrison, and Emily Nagel as we get ready, and this is going to be a big race to see who gets into the grand final and the final race here on Super Sunday.
There we go, final minute, and we saw how small this starting box is, so the strategy's very different. Denmark and New Zealand, they look like they're late. We can't even see Great Britain now, but that late approach worked really well last time. Australia, back of the box. They were first at Mark 1 last time. He seemed to have unlocked the code of the start there, and he's in a nice position now in Australia. I think it's going to be Denmark, Great Britain, and Australia with good control of their starting strategies at the moment. 33 seconds to go as the boats all line up now.
That's the umpires. Penalty USA relative Switzerland.
Oh, that's an unforced error. They're going to need to be dropping back behind the Swiss at the start. The French, we're hearing rumours of a compromised steering system. That would be bad news for De La Pierre. He's down towards the controlling end of the line, though. Great Britain nicely positioned. Diego Botín on Spain. It's going to be either end of the line, I think, for me, that's going to be good. Great Britain are controlling things well. Will the Spanish load it up and come charging in at the top of the line? Here they go. That's a great start by Australia, but look, left of screen, Great Britain and France in that battle for the final. Ainsley went really aggressive at the French, tried to put a penalty on them, but what he's done is put himself at the back of the fleet. Not a great bit of news for the Great Britain team at the moment as Australia drive towards Mark 1.
At Mark 1, it is the 2-time reigning and defending champion Aussies. They need the points, and they are in the driver's seat right now. Everyone else battling. New Zealand has put themselves in a great position. Can they hold off the rest of the fleet? Keep your eye on France and Great Britain. That's the battle.
Australia absolutely on fire out the blocks here. Slingsby really reading these starts well. It's tight in the pack. New Zealand are well positioned, and Great Britain, sure enough, first to split away. They've got to make something happen from here. But Australia, they're looking good to get themselves into the final as it gets a bit loose on board the Spanish boat.
Diego Botín, only his 2nd race as the skipper for Spain SailGP. So it's Australia, Switzerland, New Zealand, and Spain, your top 4 as they head to Gate 2.
Straight in for Australia here, Todd. They look in good shape. They're sailing the boat fast. They're confident in the boat. It's going to be tight for second. New Zealand and Switzerland. If the New Zealand team are overlapped, I think they are. They're going to be able to sneak round inside. That would almost definitely line up 2 of our finalists, and it's going to be a matter of who can move back through the fleet. Canada, a better performance here by Phil Robertson. As Ainsley on board Great Britain, well, he's got to give room to the Danes, but crucially, he's ahead of the French.
So this side of the course, a lot of action with some of the main components of those battling for those spots that Emily talked about. You've got Emirates GBR, you've got France, and you've got Canada.
Aggressive manoeuvre by the French, trying to split away from the British.
We're watching the British battle the French, but we can't forget that Canada are in the race for this as well. And currently, this would see Canada beating the British team to that final race.
I think you've got a busy few minutes ahead of you, Emily. There we go. Look how tight that is. You're going to need to stay on top of these points as Jimmy Spittle's in the mix, but the Canadian boat's going fast. Australia and New Zealand, they're off down the road. They look in good shape, but what a battle it's going to be for that final place in the final.
I want to come back to Emily really quickly. What's the tiebreaker, though, if they're all both on 34 points?
So it's whoever finishes first in the most recent race. So in this case, Canada would go through.
Oh, would that just be the worst news for the Great Britain team? That is basically emblematic of their season here in season 3.
Well, it's been little moments, but I think really it's about them against France in the overall. So if he can get a point back on the overall, that would be good news. But without doubt, Ainsley and his Emirates GB team are going to want to find a place in the final to give themselves the shot of the victory.
Right. Leg 3 of 7. This is the final fleet race before the final. It's the Australians, Canada, and New Zealand, 1, 2, and 3. And those would be the 3 boats going into the final if it stays like this.
Well, the Canadians think they've got themselves in a good position at the moment. They got the right of way against the United States. Jimmy Spittle trying to force it across just ahead. And well, Australia and New Zealand, they seem to be doing synchronized sailing at the moment, both maneuvering at the same time. But it's the Canadians moving through the fleet quickly at the moment. And Emirates GBR, well, they're stuck in the pack there. But crucially, perhaps at this moment, still ahead of the French. It's so tight, Todd.
Let's take it down to the water. And Lisa Darmanin.
Well, I think it's the crosses that are really making this racing. I haven't seen racing this close across the whole fleet for the whole season. I think if you are able to cross in front of another boat, it could mean hundreds of meters on that downwind leg. So every meter is counting out here.
Race number 5. It is Australia out in front, New Zealand in second. The Americans are in third.
So hard to read the Americans at the moment, Todd. I mean, they didn't look great in the last race, and now they look fast as anybody on this race course. Up to third, great upwind leg by Jimmy Spittle, but Tom Slingsby and his Australian crew, well, we know how important this gate 3 is, the near gate, as we can see on our screen here. It's so important in terms of holding their position, but Jimmy Spittle, he's judged the mark approach perfectly, could be through to second, squeezing inside New Zealand as Burling chooses to split the course and sail away.
I think Jimmy Spithill will be the first one to say their consistency has not been what it needed to be in New Zealand. 8, 5, 4, and a 9.
And here we go, another crucial split, Todd. We're on board the French. The French are turning right, and look, Ainsley in 5th at the moment, but he's turning left. He's opened the door for Quentin de la Pierre, who's picked the breeze right.
It is still Canada, though, one position ahead of Great Britain and France
Todd.
with problems.
Look at that, they flew too high as they turned away there. Perhaps that's the steering issue. Look at de la Pierre, furious in the background. The boat jumped too high out of the water and crashed down. Could be a technical issue, doesn't matter, but they're just so low on the water. Back to 8th place here, that's disaster.
This hurts the French team, but it doesn't change currently what we're seeing for going through to the final. This would still see Canada making that final 3rd spot.
So Canada is really the position you need to watch. They are in 4th, 1 spot ahead of Great Britain. Let's look at this one more time.
Here we go, he turns away, watch for the boat getting a bit high out the water, left-hand side of screen. Look, the rudder just came out, the boat flew too high, or just too aggressive as they turned the boat away. I couldn't really see a fault in the operating system there, more of a user error, just trying to push too hard.
Back to live racing. It is still Australia out in front, but the Kiwis are making massive gains here. They are in 2nd place. Really doesn't matter because they are pretty much locked into that final. The Americans in 3rd, and the battle really is 4th and 5th. If the Canadians could stay ahead of Great Britain, Emily, check my math, they would go through.
Exactly. Nothing else needed to be said there.
Gate number 4.
Good job someone can keep up with what's happening out here, Todd, at the minute, that is for sure. But anyway, right turn for Australia. Expect Burling to take a left turn and see if he can give a little challenge to the Australian crew. But whatever they did to that boat overnight, the Roo is a rocket ship today. As we see USA and Canada coming into this gate, they're going to have the British breathing down their neck. But Ainsley, he needs to make something happen on this next upwind leg. He really, really needs to be in the final here.
And they split the course, so Canada follows the USA. Great Britain goes to the other side. Remember, it's between Canada and Great Britain right now. And Stevie, is there a scenario in which the Americans could help Canada or Great Britain if they get in between?
Not really. It's all about the British getting past the Canadians. But the US could help the Canadians by the fact that Canada were having to follow the United States out of there. If ever you're following another boat, you're getting turbulent, disturbed wind, you're just going to be slower.
Currently, we've got breeze fairly equal across the course, so let's keep focused on Canada and the British as they come back together now. Both seeing about 25 kilometers an hour of breeze. Canadians look like they've got this cross for now. The British came off the foils in that last manoeuvre.
Yeah, wind's turned left as well here. You can see the Canadians are nearly sailing straight up our ladder lines. The wind shifted to the left, and there you go. Two-time world match race champion Phil Robertson. He knows what he needs to do. Perhaps he's got a link to Emily Nagold's spreadsheet, but we're going to follow that. That's a big lead, nearly 120 metres ahead, and there's not a lot of time left here for Ainsley to make a move.
And Stevie, you know on board Emirates GBR, they've done the math. They know exactly what they need to do.
So we've got to get past one of these boats. We've got to get past Canada, probably.
You know?
No, probably there. He's got the maths going on. He's got to find some boat speed here. Canada have positioned themselves perfectly here to lock this race down. Ainsley's only hope is that they manage to find an absolute magic extra gear. Look, they turn, Canada turns. Classic one-on-one racing here from Phil Robertson. It's a race within a race, really. He's genuinely worried about nothing else other than staying ahead of the British boat right now. Got a little bit of comms on board, and Chris Draper, the wing trimmer, some serious intensity in his voice, and Phil Robertson, surprisingly,
very
sounded
calm.
pretty calm.
Yeah. Their lead now 150.
Going away at the moment. That Canadian boat's going fast through the water at the moment. Britain, the Great British Emirates, Great Britain, they're stuck in traffic. Look, the Swiss have got past them. Swiss starting to find a bit of form, but the French, well, they're way out the back. And talk about way out in front. This Australian boat, what have they done overnight to it? It's going so fast through the water. Clearly the motivation they needed has been found.
They finished in 9th in the last race yesterday, and here they are on a tear. They won race number 4. They're on the way to winning race number 5 to punch their ticket into the final. New Zealand should be in the final as well. The big battle between Canada and Great Britain, currently 4th and 6th on the course.
And there it is, the race to the final, coming up to the finish now. And the Canadians could still have this.
They look in good shape to me. It's going to take a big mistake for the Canadians here to not make the final. And yeah, we might have to go down to Lisa at some stage and find out if she knows any magic tricks those Australians did do to the boat, because it's going well. But look at the gains the Canadians have made on this upwind leg. Phil Robertson and his crew there. Isabella Patold, the strategist, back right-hand side. She's picked a nice way up this course, and that's a big lead. It's going to take a real big error from the Canadians for the British to have any hope.
Almost 400 meters is the lead from Australia to the Americans, who now have ended in 2nd place. It really doesn't matter. The Kiwis have the points. They're in 3rd. The real battle is between Canada and Great Britain. And right now, Great Britain, Stevie, going the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big lead, and you can just hear the voice. We can hear the voice of Chris Draper. A little insight. He just said it's just us and the course. So stay in the boat, focus on doing the simple things right, then there'll be nothing that the British can do. And in fact, look, the British have dropped back behind the Swiss here even. Disaster for them. As we see Jimmy Spittle, it's too little too late for the United States crew. They might be ahead of New Zealand, but it's going to be New Zealand and Australia, the class of the field, and then Phil Robertson's Canada. Well, it's been a while since we saw them in the final. Could be just the tonic for them. penalty on the Swiss there. I'm guessing that's a boundary penalty. We couldn't see, but that would just be a 20-metre loss if it was.
So race number 5 goes the way of Australia as the Australians come out swinging on Super Sunday. They went back-to-back races to punch their ticket into the big final. The Americans will come through and grab second, so Jimmy Spithill will end his time here in New Zealand on a high note. They were looking for that speed earlier today, starting off the day with a 9th. They'll come back in the second race and get a 2nd, and the Kiwis already pretty much a lock for the final. They'll finish in 3rd. So we know for sure it'll be Australia, it'll be New Zealand, and here it is, Canada coming in 4th place, and that will give them the points, Stevie, they need to get into the big final.
Huge performance by Phil Robertson and that Canadian crew. I mean, gotta love it. He loves it, is what he says, and you've got to give them full kudos. They've done a brilliant job. They've struggled for form in the mid-season, but look what it means. They're back in business, and they're really enjoying that.
Switzerland gets 5th place. Great Britain will come through, and this is going to be major disappointment for Ben Ainslie and Emirates GBR as they finish in 6th.
Finish in 6th. They are ahead of the French, which I think puts them ahead of the French in the regatta overall, so massive disappointment to miss the final, but they will be closer in the overall season points in that battle for the grand final in San Fran, but got to be an opportunity missed. Same for the French, really. Both these teams have seemed to feel the pressure and potentially going to be losing points on New Zealand.
And when France needed the points most, they finished with a 3rd, and they back it up with a 7th in race number 5, so disappointment for them. Wow, so much to break down. Emily, you did the numbers. Now let's take it back and tell us straight what happened on this course that made it so provocative.
Well, we're going to look at the start here because it really was all on. And that's when we saw that first battle between the British and the French start. The Australians and the Spanish team had really good starts, and they were further towards the bottom end of the line. GBR were a bit late to it and decided to take out France. They slow them up, they've got right of way, so France have to avoid. But by slowing the French down, they also took themselves out. They dropped to 25 kilometers per hour of boat speed at the start, while the other teams were over double that speed.
Well, and here we go, a pretty key moment in the race. It was so tight in the pack, and we're on board the French boat here. They were just splitting away from Great Britain, got themselves back in the race. As we see them turn away, we know they're going to accelerate so fast at this point, but they just fly too high. The flight controller, Francois Morvan, didn't quite get it right. Crash down out of the water there. They fill up with water. It's a huge, huge consequence there. And from then on, well, it was a battle of Canada against Great Britain. 2 former world match race champions, and Canada, he had the opportunity to slam the door shut on Ben Ainslie, and he did, absolutely. You move, I move. You move, I move. Brilliant work by the Canadians, but how costly is that going to be on the season for the British crew?
So 5 races complete at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix here in Christchurch. It is New Zealand on 45 points. They are into the big final. The Australians come back. They get 2 wins on Super Sunday. They're in. And Canada, a clutch performance. Phil Robertson and their team, they are into the big final on 36 points, 1 point clear of Great Britain. And we now go down on the water, and Canada ready to speak with us, Stevie, and they've got to feel relieved.
Well, Phil, that was an incredible job in that last race. Gave yourself a real opportunity. How much does this mean for Canada to be back in a final?
Yeah, mate, we're stoked. Yeah, that was a good race. It's nice to have a lot of boats to beat in that sort of last race, and we managed to pull it off, so we're happy.
Looks like you got that Canadian boat going fast again. You're up against the British, the Australian and the New Zealand crew. And I'm wondering, Isabella, you're on the back of the boat. What's your strategy going to be in this race against those other 2 boats?
I think we're just going to race as hard as we possibly can, go fast, and attack this race. It's really nothing to lose. We're going to have a lot of fun out on this race course.
It certainly looks like a lot of fun from here. So, yeah, well, best of luck. Hope you manage to create a good start and give us a good race.
So the final is set in Christchurch. It will be New Zealand, Australia, and Canada that'll battle it out on this beautiful setting in Lyttelton Harbour. Who will walk away with the 10 points here at event number 10 as SailGP makes its first visit to New Zealand? What a place and what an opportunity for SailGP to come to the Southern Hemisphere and visit New Zealand for the first time. And now it's all on. It'll be the Kiwis, the Aussies, and the Canadians. Every team has their own style of racing. Let's take a look at how New Zealand have developed their winning formula.
Once the Kiwis cracked the code of the F50, they've just improved and improved and improved. Feels like the Kiwis are just one step ahead of everybody else. They've uncovered something. What that is, I'm not sure yet, but they're going quicker and quicker, and they're getting pretty dangerous for the Australian team at the top of the podium. We've just come off Plymouth and Copenhagen where the Kiwis are dominating, and we're here in Saint-Tropez, and it's time to find out the piece to the puzzle that's making those Kiwis just go so fast.
Now we're on Mark 1, and oh my, they've already overtaken 3 teams. They have the speed, they have the confidence. This is an all-or-nothing team.
And when you think about sport in New Zealand, you think about sailing and you think about rugby. And Pete and Blair have this ability to fight hard on a racetrack. And you think about the All Blacks, and nobody wants to go up against the All Blacks.
This is the danger angle in Australia. They've got to keep clear of New Zealand. Oh my word!
The Kiwi team reinventing the way that they utilise the 6 people on the boat. They've spread the load. Pete's job is to drive the F50, but they're utilising Josh Jr., who's one of the grinders. He's also a world champion sailor, to be able to use that screen on the wing, process all that data, also look at the race course and provide to Pete just the information that he requires at that point in time.
It is New Zealand SailGP that comes to Singapore and walks away with a victory.
That's something that I was really proud of looking back at Singapore, is the way we had a relatively tough build-up, and then the team came out and performed the best they had.
It doesn't get much better than this. We are mixing culture and beauty as SailGP comes to New Zealand for the first time here in Season 3. This is Event 10, and you are watching the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Christchurch. Alongside Emily Nagel, Stevie Morrison, and Lisa Darmanin, I'm Todd Harris. Everyone getting a top off on the drink as we get ready for the big final. Grab yourself some tasty oysters and get yourself a spot front and center for the best teams that'll be battled out in a winner-take-all race. No question about it, though, these teams have earned their way into this position. They have been consistent, they have been strong, they have not messed with their maneuvers, and in clutch situations, they certainly came up big. Phil Robertson has got to be one of the clutch drivers with 3 world championships to his name. As Stevie said, a 2-time world match racing champion, 11 SailGP fleet races, and he's in a big one now on home waters with the New Zealand team and the Australians, 2 of the heavy hitters in SailGP. 2-time reigning and defending champions Tom Slingsby with an Olympic gold medal, 10 world championships, and an America's Cup title to his name. He's looking to keep it 3-peat and take home another title in SailGP back to Australia. And of course, one of the fastest rising teams over the last 2 months, Peter Burling. 3 Olympic medals, 9 world championships, and of course, 2 America's Cups. And they sit in 2nd place overall, 12 points behind the Australians. So a win here would be enormous. So those 3 teams out on the water, 1:45 to go before we hit the line and crown a champion. Everyone getting into position here in the start box.
7 legs. The axis is 080. Wind is approximately 29 kilometers per hour.
That's race manager Melanie Roberts spelling things out. So, Stevie, here we go. Everyone going to play a little cat and mouse here. Who's going to blink first?
Oh, I can't wait. This, for me, is a dry... This is the last chance for New Zealand and Australia to land a punch on each other before the grand final in San Fran. Looks like they're going to be in it now. And, well, can Canada come and spoil the party? But I'm expecting a big, big fight between Australia and New Zealand.
Under a minute to go before the start of the final here at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Christchurch. The Kiwis a little late coming in.
I think they're just trying to set it up to make sure they can line themselves up relative to the other boat. He's letting the other teams make the first move. Australia likes that, but Burling likes to be a bit more reactionary. He's going to see what they set up, see what opportunity presents itself for him with 35 seconds to go. What's the next move? Pole position, that blue mark on our line to the right of the screen, that's the optimum place to start on the line. I think that could be a little bit late by New Zealand, though. They're turning back. They're going to look to push Australia back towards the start line. We've got a pusher and a blocker here. It's going to be tight. Canada are well positioned. New Zealand need to get a move on here. They've got to start rolling over the top with 10 seconds to go. It's going to be a straight line drag race in. Canada are well positioned, but New Zealand are coming in hot. 3 seconds to go. Watch for the line to turn white. Blanket start there, and I think it's going to be a case of can New Zealand be fast enough? They're going to struggle to get round the top, but if anyone can do it, the Kiwis can do it. They've got to keep clear of Australia, and Canada are hanging on the inside.
And at mark number 1, it is all on here in the big final at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Christchurch, and it is the Canadians out in front. Stevie, Emily, this would be their first final victory if they could pull it off.
Great start by Phil Robertson under pressure. He's in a good position. There's gate 2. Canada set up for the first turn here, and New Zealand are going to be held out by Australia. This is going to come down to the accuracy of manoeuvres here. It's so close. The Canadians are probably not quite as quick as Australia, but there they go. Both boats turn simultaneously, and it's another sprint. Australia on the inside. Canada have the right of way. Australia must keep clear, but that's a boundary there. He can't push the Australians into that. He's going to have to let them have room. Here we go. Canada's going to be aggressive now. Watch out. Australia must keep clear. Another aggressive move from Robertson.
Disappointing speeds from the Kiwis at the moment. 10 kilometers an hour slower than the other two teams.
Just sailing in that disturbed wind for New Zealand being at the back of the pack. I would imagine a right turn here for New Zealand. Canada, great move by Robertson, really aggressive. And Australia are pushed back to third. New Zealand dive in, but Canada are a little bit slow as they turn up. All three boats are making some small mistakes. Canada turn left, they get the first pick, and it's Burling's New Zealand up to second.
Pete Burling calling for the high mode. The Aussies right behind him.
He's trying to force the Australians out of his way at the moment. Until he gets to the boundary, the New Zealand boat can't turn because the right of way would be with Australia. As he gets to the boundary, he'll get protection, but Canada, they're sprinting away on the other side, able to sail fast.
On the other side of the course, Canada are doing 55, 56 kilometers an hour. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of the course, we have the Kiwis and Aussies doing 40 kilometers an hour. Huge difference.
This is the umpires. Boundary penalty, Australia.
He's got to lose 20 metres there, too aggressive. We kind of felt it might happen. They're trying to land punches on each other. They've gone slow. It's opened the door for Canada. But now, New Zealand are in space. They're 100 metres behind the Canadians. They've got some chasing to do.
In the grand scheme of things, New Zealand and Australia can give away points to Canada. They could let the Canadians get this first overall win for their program. Canada sits in 7th place overall on 49 points. Australia has 76, New Zealand 64. But, Stevie, you know these two guys. Pete Burling, Tom Slingsby, they've raced against each other, and they're not going to give each other an inch.
Todd, I've not spent a lot of time in New Zealand, but I can tell you one thing. Kiwis don't like losing in New Zealand. This is their home turf. They want to win for the fans. They want to win for themselves. And they're not going to like seeing Canada out in front. But also, let's not forget Phil Robertson. Yes, he's driving the Canadian boat. He's got a Kiwi accent too.
So Robertson, who used to sail for Spain, New Zealand by birth, and here he is sailing for Canada, trying to give them their first SailGP Grand Final victory.
Look at the lead come down, 60 metres, it was 100 metres, so the New Zealand boat is chipping away, but once again, Robertson lines them up. He's going the same way. He's limiting the opportunity for the Kiwis to overtake. They're going to have to use that boat speed that we saw on day one.
By staying close to the other teams, he's making sure he's in all the same wind shifts. So that means if the Kiwis get a different shift, Phil will get that as well, and they can cover, stay close, minimize losses.
Phil Robertson and Canada out in front, leg 3 of 7. This is the big final from Christchurch as we go down on the water, and Lisa Darmanin.
Well, Phil has the opportunity to just keep it simple. He'll probably do a left turn at this top gate, and the Kiwis will have to do another manoeuvre, while Australia may lay one and in to this left turn. So it's all on for this next cross.
So at gate number 3, it is Canada. Phil Robertson, the driver. Second place belongs to the Kiwis and Peter Burling. And third place, Australia, the two-time reigning and defending champions. And first place overall after 9 events, Australia.
It's tight for those two back there. Australia went out of bounds twice on this upwind leg, but those penalties haven't really hurt them. And here we go, 12 seconds the advantage for Canada over New Zealand. That's a slight stretch from where it was at gate 2. We're halfway through the race, and now the fleet's spread out a little bit. It's a little bit more of a battle of boat speed, but the Canadians, no problem with their boat speed right now. Look at that, 74 kilometers an hour, stretching out, and New Zealand, they're just struggling to keep pace with the Canadians.
They're already talking about the next gate, Stevie and Emily. They're looking for something.
Throwing back to that previous leg of the race, we can see that the Canadians averaged 53.4 kilometers an hour, while both Kiwis and Aussies were too busy battling each other out and a lot slower. It's less than 50.
Oh, in the back, Canada! Look at the jibe, Todd. They've fallen off. They turned the boat. They flew too high. They're back on the foils now, but they're going to have lost distance and they're going to be rattled. Can they recompose themselves? Opportunity now for the New Zealand boat to shut the distance, but it sounds like they've got it back under control on Canada, maybe just in time.
So that lead now down to 100 meters, and it is New Zealand breathing down the neck of the Canadians.
It's going to be tight here. We're back under 100 meters. We're going to have to be thinking New Zealand will want to try and split away from the Canadians here. If Canada turns right, you can be sure New Zealand will want to turn left.
And they're going to follow him.
They're going to follow. I'm surprised at that. Must be really feeling there's a big advantage, or perhaps he just thinks by breathing down their neck, he can force another mistake.
Uncharacteristic mistake by the Canadians. They were almost 300 meters clear, and now their lead down to 67 meters.
There you go, first to turn away, New Zealand. Obviously like the advantage there. Australia, they match manoeuvres with the Kiwis, and Canada, well, they're sailing well in towards the shore here. Can they clear that boundary? The 3 posts we see there, they're not allowed to sail between that. If Canada has to dip round the edge of that red one, I think this could be a mistake by the Canadians.
And look at the speed difference.
Yeah, they're so fast. That's because Canada are trying to get above this green post to our left here. He's sailing closer to the wind, so he's going slower, but he's going to save himself some distance. Leads come down. When they turn in a minute, New Zealand will have the right of way. This could be a race, an event-defining moment here. Canada have given the opportunity to New Zealand, and New Zealand are on fire.
And New Zealand has overtaken the Canadians, their first lead of the race. So it's New Zealand, Canada, and Australia here in the final race, leg 5 of 7.
We've got those average speeds there. Canadians marginally faster at the moment, but we did see them lose all of that distance from avoiding the obstruction.
Yeah, here we go, right of way with New Zealand. Canada must be confident they're across. If they cross, they'll have control back as we get towards the top of the course. Well, that was a big save by the Canadians, but this is going to be really tight at the top of the course. Can't afford any more mistakes here.
Phil Robertson, the top of your screen. Canadians currently in first place. Peter Burling sitting in second with the homestanding Kiwis.
There on the top left, we've got the distance to lead us, 16 meters, and dropping now towards Canada.
It's really tight, but when they come back together, it'll be Canada with the right of way here until they get close to the gate. Australia, they've dropped back. I think they're out of this at this point. It's all about, can the Kiwis put enough pressure on Canada and find a chink in that Canadian armour? Nice turn there. They're neck and neck on the ladder lines. Canada have the right of way. Canada set up. They're going to try and block the New Zealand boat here. Here we go. Great manoeuvre by the Canadians, but how are they lined up for the gate here? It looks tight. New Zealand are quicker. Oh, it's so tight.
It's going to be the first to the yellow circle. Who's going to get there first and control it? It looks like Canada's opting for that right-hand side. Does Peter Burley split with him?
Canada will have the inside, but they are slow at this point in time. New Zealand are going to look to try and slingshot down inside and control the next manoeuvre. Here we go. Follows, he's going to try and pressure him with the manoeuvres. This is the final downwind leg here, Todd, and Canada have done a brilliant job of hanging in. One last roll of the dice for Australia, but I think, here we go. There go New Zealand. First to turn away, it's now just a drag race.
And the wind up to 37 kilometers an hour across the course.
It's just perfect sailing conditions, Todd. Basically, we're going to see 2 more turns down at the bottom of the course here. Another mistake by Canada.
Boundary penalty, Canada.
Oh, no! That could be, they're going to have to lose 20 metres relative to the speed of the New Zealand boat. They're going to have the right of way. This might not be the end of the race for the Canadians, but that's going to really hurt them distance-wise. Here we go, one more manoeuvre for Burling. He wants to own the zone, he just said there. He wants to be right on the inside coming into this mark, and he's going to try and do a handbrake turn inside the Canadians as his final move of the event.
That's the Canadians clear of their penalty there, so foot down, full speed ahead.
Foot down indeed. Here we go. Coming downwind here fast. Which side do they line up on these posts? Can Canada get round? Canada seem to have found an extra bit of wind here. They're going so fast on that Canadian boat. The ladder lines show us neck and neck.
It does look like the Canadians are currently laying that gate.
Canada has the right of way, but do they make it down to the gate in time here?
It's all going to come down to this at gate number 6. Then it'll be the turn to the finish line. It'll either be Canada with their driver, Phil Robertson, a Kiwi, or New Zealand will take it on home waters, and it's Canada cutting in front. So despite the penalty, they made up the ground, and it'll be a right-hand turn. And how about this? A little history made in Christchurch as Phil Robertson will steer Canada to their first SailGP victory, and it comes at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix.
Oh, what a job by the Canadians. Wow, clinical there.
Just when it looked like New Zealand had put the pressure on and forced them into a penalty, it is Canada and Phil Robertson that get the job done. The Kiwis hold on for second place, and Australia will come in on third.
Getting right to the edge of the course there. He went a bit wide, but he meant he got past that boundary without doing any more manoeuvres. Absolutely pushing the limits there, Phil Robertson, but that's what he does, and what an amazing performance by this Canadian crew. Great to see them taking their first ever victory.
And you look at the Canadians across the board. You go back to day number 1, they had a 5th. Then they came back with a 3rd, and then they won race number 3. But in race 4, Stevie and Emily, they dropped back and got a 6th before rebounding in race number 5 and getting a 4. So consistency up and down, but when it counted most, they delivered.
Oh, they absolutely delivered, and to be fair, they nailed the start. The start in these 3-boat races is always so crucial, and they absolutely nailed it. Perfect timing, great speed at the gun, and well, they led from start to finish, so you can't fault them. That was a brilliant performance under the biggest test.
What a performance by the Canadians. They come to Christchurch and absolutely deliver. You go back to the start, Emily, and everyone knew you had to be clutch. You couldn't make a mistake early on.
That's true, and going into that start, we saw all the teams really neck and neck. They all really nailed the start, but what it came down to was this bottom gate. We saw the Canadians split away from the Kiwis and Australians, and they just let them go. And while, yes, you can only race one boat at a time, you would think that these
respectively. So after 10 events in Season 3, it looks like this. It is now 11-point lead for Australia. The two-time reigning and defending champions will make the turn for San Francisco and trying to hold off their arch enemies, the Kiwis, who are now in second place. France just barely hold on to that third and final spot. 1 point clear of Emirates GBR. Denmark, Canada, the United States, Switzerland, and Spain more than likely will not make the grand final in San Francisco. But wow, 7 weeks from now, it is going to be all to play for. As we take it down on the water and Canada, there's a celebration beginning and back in North America. Phil Robertson, we'll start with you. What a performance for you guys. And after race number 4, when you had a 6th, you bounced back in race number 5 and got a 4th. At that point, were you feeling that the team had what it took or had what it would take to win here in Christchurch?
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, I think we came into this event and all the previous ones thinking we could take it out, and yeah, look, it's we wrapped it up as the day went on. We did the same yesterday and finished with a bullet, so it's nice to do that 2 days in a row, and this one was a little more special than yesterday.
Well, Phil, it was a really amazing race there. You certainly pushed the limit with that boundary penalty on the final downwind and kept us pretty entertained. But yeah, you said in the press conference you were 100% confident that you were going to win here. Is that the new boat, or is that just something we haven't seen inside that Canadian team?
I think you've been seeing it all along, Stevie, but yeah, we just haven't strung it all together, so it's nice to put the whole package in and yeah, get that final race. We gave it a good shot of letting the Kiwis back into it, but look, we held strong, and yeah, the boundary penalty must have been a half a metre or something over it, and we managed to just scrub that and stay on lay and come fast into the bottom, so happy days.
Phil, you may be driving for Canada, but you are a proud Kiwi. What does it mean to you to come back to Christchurch and get this victory and deliver it to the Canadian team?
Oh, for sure. It's awesome. I'm so stoked to win at home, and I've got my parents here and my wife and brothers, so it's super, super special for me. I've got good mates on the shore, and I haven't raced here before, so I'm pumped. And for Canada, it's just amazing, you know. This team's pretty new, and we're pretty fresh, and we've been working hard to be competitive with all these top teams, and yeah, today's just an example of what we can do when we put it all together. So it's good. It's nice to see a bit of progress and get an event win and get that little monkey off our shoulders, so happy days.
Phil, it was a great performance, and we actually got to come on board you on the first leg. The rudder seemed to hardly be in the water. I don't know if that's your choice or Billy's choice, flying the boat, but I mean, my heart was in my mouth, so I don't know how that first reach felt.
Yeah, well, I think if you looked at the way we pushed the boat around the course, and you know, we had one wobble in one of the jibes and stuffed the boat in, but yeah, we put her on the limit in that race, and we got a special word for that, and that's mode 11. That's what we're pushing for.
Phil, we got to ask you before we let you go and let the celebration begin, because it's well earned. What is the difference for you as the driver for Canada, as we saw in past teams that you have sailed for? We won't mention those teams, but the teams that you have sailed for in the past, and what's your mindset like now with this team and this group you're with for Canada?
Yeah, look, it's fantastic. You know, Canada's a very similar culture to New Zealand, so it's nice and easy. I get along with everyone really well, and yeah, look, we've got a great team. We've got a great group of people, and you know, that makes a great team. So I'm happy. I think the team's happy, and we've just got to keep building, because there's a lot more seasons to go, and we're only just I guess a fresh new team. So yeah, there's plenty more to come from us.
Phil, we appreciate your time. Go celebrate with the crew, and congratulations once again. So Phil Robertson and Canada will celebrate in Lyttelton Harbour here in Christchurch as they take top honours at the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix Event 10 here in Season 3. And you've got a Kiwi skippering for the Canadians, Stevie. I don't want to say it was a long shot, because they had the consistency on day number 1, and they certainly finished race number 3, the last race yesterday, in grand style, getting the win. But are you surprised how rapidly they've come on?
I'm surprised how well they handled the pressure today. In the final 2 races, they couldn't really afford any mistakes for the last few laps. And to be perfectly honest, they've shown us moments of being fast, but they've shown us a fair few mistakes during the season. They absolutely nailed it under big pressure. There's so much talent on that boat. I'm not surprised they can win, but really they dealt so well with the pressure.
And that is New Zealand's most decorated Paralympian, Dame Sophie Pascoe, a swimmer. She has dominant in the pool, and she does the honors as she hands the wheel to Phil Robertson, and now the celebration really gets underway. Emily Nagel, you're a past world champion. It's moments like these that keep you coming back, isn't it?
It's all about the celebrating and just the sense of achievement, and there's a lot of that on board today. It's great to see the underdog really coming through and claiming their first victory.
And Stevie, I think a lot of us were focused on New Zealand and Australia as they were going to go head-to-head and duke it out. And here it is. A Kiwi did win, but it was Phil Robertson in Canada.
Yeah, nailed the start, thoroughly deserved it. And I think, you know, we saw at that gate 2, Australia and New Zealand were tight with each other. I think probably they did get into a little bit of a battle. They're going to see that as a little bit of a chance to land a punch ahead of the grand final. But that Canadian crew just showed that if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And it was a dominant display, really. And as I say, they held it together under the biggest test in SailGP at the moment. Australia and New Zealand are the standout teams, and they held them off. So what a line in the sand that is for Canada.
Sophie Pascoe, New Zealand's most decorated Paralympian, enjoying the party on board. And you remember the start of the season, Canada came out swinging. They had a 3rd in Bermuda, a 2nd in Chicago, and they were like, wow, this is a surprise team. This is one of Emily's, this is one of the teams to keep an eye on. Right now, let's go down on the water, the 4th member of our broadcast team. Here's Lisa Darmanin. Lisa.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that racing, and it was just fantastic to see Canada sneak away with that win. But what is really exciting to me is that was the last final we're going to see before the grand final. So it was an interesting warm-up for the Australians and Kiwis, and what I've learned is 2 and 3 can't fight too hard because the first place in a final will run away. So I think we're in store for a fantastic final in San Francisco, and it'd be a really, really tight battle who beats who between France and Great Britain for that final spot. So I certainly cannot wait.
Great work, Lisa, and we appreciate all your hard work down there on the water, keeping us inside information and the intel. Let's take a look at Season 3 and the championship scoreboard as we make the turn north now to San Francisco. And this will be all on Stevie. You look at Australia, they're probably in. New Zealand, probably in. And now here's where it gets tricky. France, Emirates, GBR, Denmark, all within 9 points.
Yeah, I think Australia are in. New Zealand, I guess they can't afford a slip-up. Denmark, for me, are gone. So it's France against Emirates GBR. And I think what's really important to remember is if at the end of the event in San Francisco before the grand final, they're tied on points, whoever's done better in that event will go through. So that means if Emirates GBR beat the French, just finish ahead of them, they'll be tied on points, but they'll be the boat in the final. So absolutely going to go to the wire here. But for me, yeah, it's 3rd and 4th in a straight shootout on those first 5 races in San Fran.
Emily, you're always good at prognosticating. If you look at San Francisco and the conditions that'll be there, and you look at France and you look at Emirates GBR, who do you give the advantage to?
We have seen the French dominate in the strong breeze, so it'd be hard to bet against them when that is the classic San Fran conditions, but I would never want to bet against Emirates GBR.
Well, that is all coming up at the Mubadala SailGP Season 3 Grand Final in San Francisco, California. That will be May 6th and 7th, and you will not want to miss that. The $1 million race to see who will take the title in Season 3. Australia, the 2-time reigning and defending champions. Can they do it again? Before we say goodbye, Emily, take us through the Impact League.
So New Zealand remain in the top position of the Impact League leaderboard. Just 3 points clear of Denmark, and Australia are now the most improved. Here in Christchurch, teams have been working with the Omari Stream Restoration Project, which aims to restore forests surrounding this weekend's racecourse, enabling biodiversity to flourish and reduce sediment runoff. So all the teams are out there trying to do their part to help protect the planet.
The race for the future, the Impact League doing a fantastic job throughout this season and the prior 2 seasons. So we wish them the very best as they continue to do their part to leave a very negative carbon footprint. Tell you what, guys, it doesn't get much better than this. The first time SailGP comes to New Zealand, Stevie, and they certainly deliver. The folks here, they put on a great performance. And look at this, the grandstand's packed every single day.
Yeah, I'm so jealous to not be able to get out on the water there. We've seen the F-50s ripping around. We saw the Armstrong wing foils out there on the water, giving it a big display, and it just looks an incredible place to be on the water. So definitely a destination I want to find myself in.
No question about it. They say, kakite ano. Thank you to New Zealand. We appreciate the hospitality. We appreciate everyone that worked so hard to make this event happen. And I have a feeling we will certainly be coming back. This has been one for the record books. So, on behalf of Stevie Morrison, Emily Nagel, and Lisa Darmanin, I'm Todd Harris saying so long for now. You've been watching the ITM New Zealand Sail Grand Prix from Christchurch and Lyttelton Harbour. Once again, it is Canada that takes the title, and we will see you in San Francisco in 7 weeks' time. So long, everybody.
It all comes down to the final race of the season.
The best position. Look at the Americans follow suit, and everyone going for the same mark.
The mark drifted away. There's just one mark in there. That means they must take it.
Winner takes all. 3 teams will race for the SailGP title. Tom Slingsby and the Australian team have secured their place. But who will join them at the Mubadala SailGP Season 3 Grand Final, San Francisco?